UFC 255 is this Saturday night. You know what that means. The Barnhill Bros are giving you our predictions right now. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So, Nick, we got another pay-per-view card this weekend.
Absolutely.
2 titles on the line. And this is all actually a very good card. I think this is a bit underrated. Everybody's looking forward to the end of the year card and, you know, what's coming in early 2021. But UFC 255 is actually pretty good in my opinion.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. They usually try to hit us pretty hard at the end of the year. This year, they're kind of ending things a little early than, you know, compared to what they usually do. December 19th is the final card of the year for the UFC. And this, I guess, is the final pay-per-view for the UFC. Or is there one more after this?
You know what? There's been some changes made to the 256 card, and I think that was supposed to be Amanda Nunes, and she had to pull out last minute. As we stand here today, I'm not exactly sure where that card sits or if it will ultimately end up being a pay-per-view or not. But we're used to getting that card, kind of after Christmas, before New Year, and that kind of lag week where everybody's just hanging around and spending time with family. But yeah, so this year the last one will be December 19th.
And I don't think that's not a pay-per-view. That's a Khamzat Chimaev Leon Edwards is the main event, right?
Yes, that's Edwards Chimaev, December 19th. So yeah, that's a good point.
I remember back they were trying to make the December pay-per-view Usman and Burns and Nunes and Anderson. Right. And I guess both of those fights are getting delayed and postponed till later. Early in 2021. The beginning of 2021 looks incredible. They've got some great things lined up from January throughout as far as they've scheduled. But it does kind of feel like this card is getting overlooked and that the final part of the year is kind of lazy, so to speak, but it's not. This card is actually very good. Not just the main card, but also the prelims are pretty good too.
Yeah, and I know we're going to give just predictions only on the main card today. That's how we usually do it on the show. But there's a lot of good fighters and interesting matchups on this card. Yeah. And like I said, 2 title fights. Yeah. And Valentina Shevchenko, in my opinion, is skilled of a fighter as there is in the UFC, male or female division. I mean, her striking is about as good as it gets.
She's so good.
Deiveson Figueiredo, what more can you say about him? He's electrified the men's 125 division.
Right. Henry Cejudo saved it, and he has definitely given it a lot of life since taking over and becoming the champ. What I find very interesting about this is the main and the co-main event, the 2 world titles on 255. They are both flyweight flyweight title fights, and that's the crazy part is the men's division. Everybody thought about this time last year, and for the couple of years they were on their way out and they weren't really signing new 125ers. And then if you go back a couple of years from there was no female 125. So it's cool that a division was saved and created, and now that they're both big enough and have good enough stars to co-headline a card.
No, that's cool. That's a great point, actually.
Yeah.
And then we've got Platinum Mike Perry on this card.
He's always must see.
Caitlin Chukagian. Yeah. And then starting off the card, I guess that's kind of where we can start the predictions off. And I have the actual statistics and the betting odds right here. Yeah. But starting off the main card, we have the ever-tough Brazilian warrior, Mauricio Shogun Rua.
Yeah, Shogun, yeah.
He's taking on Paul Craig. This is actually a rematch that was a split decision majority draw.
Wow.
In 2019. So it was a split decision, but 2 judges scored it a draw, and I believe that was a circumstance, and so it was booked as a draw for both men.
I remember that now.
Yeah, it's strange, but Craig is a submission expert. He's got 12 of 13 wins in MMA have come via submission. Yeah. Mauricio Shogun Rua is, as you know, not an easy guy to submit. He's an old-school Brazilian black belt, legend of the sport. So how do you see this fight going? Since you had sort of a weird outcome the first time, where do you see the second fight taking us?
Well, I will say that I wish I would have watched the first fight that happened last year before we filmed this, but I haven't had time to go back and dig through the UFC files and watch it. If I did, I would probably have a better indication as to who I think was going to win. A lot of my mind is telling me go with Paul Craig. He's a younger guy. Shogun, who has kind of been past. But I don't see the path to victory for Paul Craig just being going out there and submitting him because, like you said, Shogun's very hard to submit. And I don't know. I don't want to discount any veterans of the sport that are from Brazil that may or may not be in their 40s, mid 40s after Glover Teixeira and what we're seeing some of these guys. Anderson Silva even. I know he lost to Uriah Hall, but he still looked good
until he didn't.
Right. Yeah. So it's hard for me to say. I do see the beginning portion of this main card having a few decisions, and I think this is going to be one of those fights that does actually have a decision. I'm going to go with Paul Craig edging out a victory, but I think it's going to be a very good fight.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough fight, and Shogun's definitely going to make Paul Craig work if he gets that victory. I don't think he does, though. I think the veteran, the experience comes into play here and plays a major role in this fight. Mauricio Shogun Rua has seen Paul Craig in there before. He's felt him. Yeah. He knows where his strengths lie, and obviously, if you look at the numbers and the statistics, his strengths lie in submissions and his jiu-jitsu game. I don't see any set of circumstances in which Paul Craig submits Shogun. I believe Paul Craig has one victory by knockout. If I'm wrong, it's 0. Yeah. So, and we all know how hard Shogun is to knock out. He's as tough as nails. He's as tough as they come. When you're talking about a 3-round fight, all you have to do is win 2 rounds. I believe the experience will come in to be a major factor there, and Shogun figures out a way to win 2 of the 3 rounds, just edge him out, win a decision, maybe even a split decision. And we'll call it a split decision win instead of a split decision draw this time. Yeah. 29-28 Shogun Rua.
Yeah, I think octagon control and positional battles is where this fight's going to be won.
I think so. I think you're right. And the odds on that are actually plus 152 for Shogun to minus 188 for Paul Craig. So
pretty close.
Shogun is a bit of an underdog. So if you feel confident in him like I do, that's actually not a bad bet in my opinion. Yeah. So we're moving on now to the women's 125 division. So a lot of good 125 matchups on this card. Yeah. We have Caitlin Chookagian versus Cynthia Calvillo. Right. Cynthia Calvillo sort of touted this fight as a grappler versus striker matchup. Yes. I don't necessarily agree with her in that sense because she's touting herself as the grappler and Chookagian as the striker. But if you look at Chookagian, I mean, she's a brown belt under Renzo Gracie and trains with the Danaher Death Squad. Mm-hmm. And to anybody out there who doesn't know who the Danaher Death Squad is, just look up any no-gi jiu-jitsu promotion, competition, matchup, ADCC, etc. All of their guys are winning medals, most of them gold. Right. So
if you're in the jiu-jitsu world, you know who that squad is.
Yeah, that's certainly not a striker who does a little grappling. If you're a brown belt under John Danaher and Renzo Gracie, you are a grappler. You may also very well be a striker, but you are very much a good grappler.
Yeah, and I think Chookagian is a well-rounded mixed martial artist, but I will say that it doesn't make sense to call her a striker. She doesn't have very much power in her hands. No. And she's not like a super technical striker. She's good at what she does, but she sticks to the basics and kind of does well in that realm. She's not like a Valentina where you're going to see some amazing highlight reel, incredible motions and setups for strikes that literally nobody else is doing. But I also think that you have to, this fight is one of those situations where the grappler, the one who's touting herself the grappler, and Cynthia Calvillo, needs to understand that there's not a ton of punching power, not a ton of striking power coming from her opponent in Chookagian. And she needs to go ahead and risk it, get in range, close the distance, and if she believes she's the superior grappler, take the fight down there where she thinks she has the advantage. But it would be nice if you're a grappler and you're going up against somebody who you think to be a striker that doesn't have a ton of power when it comes to striking. So I do have Cynthia Calvillo winning this one. It sucks, Chookagian, she's going to, lose. And I can't remember if she fought since Valentina or not, but I don't think she did. And
I'd have to look back. I don't think I think she
is she on a losing streak?
I can't remember.
She might have gotten one back. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's always stinks to see a top contender set back and then set back again. But Calvillo, there's a lot to be said for momentum and confidence and energy, and she brings all of that to the octagon. I think that this is her time. I think she's going to win, and I think she actually gets a TKO finish.
Yeah. So I kind of see it's funny. We usually pick the same fighters on these cards, and usually we've done pretty good if history is any indicator.
Somebody's gonna win, somebody's gonna lose on these bets.
Yes. So I think Chookagian might be a good bet here. She's a plus 184 underdog to a minus 230 for Calvillo.
Yeah.
I don't see where they kind of come up with that. Neither one of these girls are known for their finishes. Neither one of them have a lot of knockouts, and they're both kind of good grapplers. So I think the grappling is going to negate to some degree, and I think we're going to get a very mediocre sort of stand-up match.
Right.
Not that it's going to be a bad fight, but it's just not. I think it's going to be one of those slower-paced fights that ends up going all 3 rounds. And I do see Chookagian edging it out. Yeah. Maybe decision. 2 rounds to 2. Yeah, for sure decision. Either way, in my opinion, it's going to be a decision. But I think Chookagian wins it. I think she does just enough. And if there is any grappling exchanges, which actually to me, that's where my biggest level of interest is with this fight is I hope it goes to the ground and we get to see some grappling exchanges because I believe, truthfully, that's where both women excel. I don't agree with Cynthia that this is a grappler versus striker. I believe this is a grappler versus grappler. Yeah. And, I'd like to see a little bit of grappling.
Yeah, and when those types of fights happen and the grappling portion negates itself and each other, and it winds up being kind of a sloppy-ish stand-up match, you have to go with what you think both of these people bring to the table. And I would say neither of them are crazy one-punch knockout power type of girls, but Chookagian really doesn't have a lot of power, and Cynthia does. And I think that Chookagian's a good fighter, but she's fighting a pressure fighter, and it's very hard to fight going backwards. I think it's going to be difficult for her to circle and maneuver and find space in the octagon for 15 full minutes against Calvillo, and that's where I think maybe she gets caught, and then the fight ends with a TKO from ground and pound.
Okay, interesting. And now we got Platinum Mike Perry versus the Dirty Bird. We got Tim Means. So this is an interesting fight. Mike Perry just recently defeated Mickey Gall. Yeah. Before that, he was on a 2-fight skid, one of them being to Jeff Neal. He got, kind of brutally knocked out by Jeff Neal. Tim Means is one of those guys. He's been in the UFC for close to a decade now. He wins some, he loses some. He always tries to put on good performances. Right. I'm a fan of the Dirty Bird. Mike Perry had this issue with the weight cut. Some news came out that he said he was 25 pounds overweight 10 days before the fight, which is actually kind of common for some fighters, especially ones that fight at 170 and beyond, like Mike Perry does. A lot of them do cut a lot of weight week of, but for the fact that he would bring that up and mention that as a point tells me that that's not usually the case for him. And it is a bit cause for concern, especially with some of the things we've seen Mike Perry doing, getting into bar fights, and hearing some of the stuff that has come out about him. I'm wondering how dedicated and how much time he's put into training for this fight.
Yeah, and I think he's a dedicated guy, a disciplined guy for the most part, but he's a distracted guy. And he tends to get distracted often. And if this 25 pounds over thing has to do with the water cut and the water loading phase, there's no issues here. He was just doing a bit of trolling. But if he was, eating too many cheeseburgers and pizzas and hot dogs and stuff like that and has to suffer through a weight cut, it's going to be a long fight week while he's trying to cut those last few pounds. I think that Tim Means' experience is going to play a role into this. And, Tim has always been one of those guys that's just win 2, lose 1, win 1, lose 2, in and out. He's, he'll make some great performances for you. He'll put some awesome,
he always does get into good fights.
Yeah, great fights. He's always going to do it. And anybody that, is trying to build off of Tim Means or they're on their way down, they have a tough fight on their hands. It's hard to bet against Mike Perry because he has so much power, but I do think that the experience of Tim Means is going to come in and he's going to try to, avoid the things that some people have not avoided when they fight Mike Perry, like that crazy power. Yeah. It's hard. And Tim does like to get in firefights occasionally.
But Tim has a great chin, too.
He does. And he likes, but, he does like to brawl. I wouldn't suggest brawling with Mike Perry. That's just not a good idea for anybody. But I would have to say that I think I think Tim Means might get it done in a decision.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Tim Means as well. Yeah. I think he's going to get this fight done, and this is one of those ones that I wish I could update, like do an updated, amended version of this video after I see the weigh-ins.
Yeah,
because I think the weigh-ins are going to tell us so much here.
And what are the odds?
The odds are Perry is -142, Means is plus 116. So it's a close fight.
They have it close. I'm glad they have it close. I'm glad I'm not way off on this. I think I usually like Mike Perry, and I think he's a very strong, powerful athlete. But I don't know. I just think for some reason my body's telling me to just go with Tim Means on this one.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that, with all the stuff that we've heard of Mike Perry outside of the octagon.
And who's cornering him?
Who knows? There was supposed to be Darren Till, and then, who knows?
His girlfriend's pregnant.
Mike Perry lives a life that most of us would describe as obscure.
Yeah.
But it works for him, and he's an entertaining character. I know he gets himself into trouble sometimes, but he is a good fighter, and he is a skilled fighter. I think a lot of people just think, he's a street fighter. Mike Perry's come a long way. We've seen him do some grappling matches. I believe he's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu.
Very good at grappling.
Yeah, and so Mike Perry is a good mixed martial arts fighter. I don't want to get that twisted. But so is Tim Means. Yeah. I mean, and I think that Tim Means has certainly prepared properly for this fight. I'm just not sure that Mike Perry has, and Means has got the veteran experience. So I'm going to give it to Means to grind out a decision. But I would, under normal circumstances, if Mike Perry was still at a proper fight camp, and I knew who his corner was, and I knew that there wasn't an issue with the weight cut, and I knew there wasn't outside of the octagon fisticuffs and problems that he tends to have, then I would for sure pick Mike Perry to win this by second round stoppage. But because of all those things, I'm picking Tim Means to win this by third round, full-time decision.
And I want to call an audible on myself real quick because I have to ask a question. Is he training with Yoel Romero still? That's what I heard he was last. And I haven't heard more news on that since.
Yeah, let us know in the comments, guys, if you know where Mike Perry is training this week. I know it's probably different than last week, but I had heard that he was down there in South Florida, getting some looks with Romero, but who knows how formalized that is, or if it's just in and out sort of situation.
Well, what I was going to say is he seems like the kind of guy, obviously he likes to keep the fights on the feet, and Yoel, even though he's a high level grappler, likes to keep fights on the feet. So I wouldn't be surprised if you try to see if he's been training with Yoel Romero, if he tries to shoot for a takedown or two, if it happens to be close rounds and he's been working on things like that. So I don't know if I'm ready to switch my prediction over to Mike Perry for Tim Means, but I do think we should watch out for that, because if he's hanging out with Yoel Romero, he's getting better. He's getting the rub from the wrestling skill just off hanging out with Yoel Romero.
Yeah.
So,
guys, just a quick note here. We won't have time to do another video after the weigh-ins and then before the fights, because it takes a bit for us to put these together for you guys. But I promise you that we will both, Nick and I, comment from our personal YouTube pages who we think is going to win the fight after we see the weigh-ins and all the news and stories transpire this week. So look out for those comments. It may still be Tim Means, maybe Platinum Mike.
Yeah, and since we're on opposites, I'm going to call an audible, full-blown audible. I'll go Mike Perry on this one. I think he's going to get a late stoppage. You go Tim Means. We're just opposites all night.
Yeah,
and
I don't think we're opposites on the next one.
Yeah,
the one that I think should be the main event of the evening. That is no slight to Deiveson Figueiredo.
Yeah,
and that is no slight to Alex Perez.
The body of work of Valentina.
Yeah, I think it's time that everybody as an MMA community starts recognizing Valentina Shevchenko as one of the best mixed martial artists in the game.
Yeah.
And that's not female mixed martial artists. That's mixed martial artists in the game. Her Muay Thai is unmatched.
Yeah.
Her ability to adapt and learn a submission game when you talk about Henry Cejudo being the triple C because he went to the Olympics and he won a gold medal. Excuse me, Valentina Shevchenko is a 17-time world Muay Thai champion.
Yeah.
Now she's the UFC champion. I personally don't think that any woman can beat Valentina Shevchenko whose name isn't Amanda Nunes. And the only reason Amanda can beat her is because there's such a size and strength discrepancy that when you have all other things relatively equal, the size and strength plays a factor. But I think, truth be told, Valentina's a more skilled fighter than Amanda as far as her X's nose and her technique in there. She's a massive favorite. Let's see here. She's minus 1,800 to Jennifer Maia's plus 880. And, now we talked about that video we did about Terrence Crawford and how often a championship fight in the UFC sees crazy odds like this, and now it would be coincidence that it comes back this week to bite us. We said that, but this is just one of those ones where it's the next fighter up,
right?
And this is one of those instances where it's not that they're putting her with people to pad her record. It's just that there is nobody there.
Right. The next best contender is Jennifer Maia.
Jennifer Maia deserves to be in there. She just submitted JoJo Calderwood. She's a very skilled fighter. She's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. She's a high-level Muay Thai fighter. She's out of the Chuta Box Academy, which has produced legends, many, many UFC Brazilian champions. She checks all the boxes. Unfortunately for her, she happens to be fighting in an era where I think one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world, and certainly one of the best, if not the best, women's mixed martial arts fighters of all time is competing in Valentina Shevchenko.
Absolutely. And, she's kind of plagued by the same thing that Roy Jones was plagued by. And it's not that he was ducking fighters. He wasn't. And she's not ducking fighters. She's just so much further along skill-wise than all these other fighters, and whoever they put in front of her, it looks like they don't belong. Obviously, aside from Amanda Nunes. But when you go 8 total rounds with Amanda Nunes, and a lot of people think you won the majority of those, I think there's room for a trilogy. And I think that even though she lost those 2 fights on the scorecards, her stock continued to go up. She found her home in the 125 division, which is where her body is built for specifically. I do hope and I do believe that we'll see them, Amanda Nunes and Valentina Shevchenko, fight one more time. I don't know if the results are going to be different, but what I will say is Amanda Nunes does appear, and I think she's even gone as far as to say it, that she's reaching the tail end of her career. You know, she's done the champ thing, and she's very successful, still is. I think she's going to run through a couple more people at 145, a couple more people at 135, and then ride off into the sunset, as she should. But as soon as that happens, I think Valentina Shevchenko should go right into champ eligibility. I think if Amanda Nunes just retired tomorrow, Valentina Shevchenko should and would step into the 135 female vacant title fight and would be the heavy favorite in that fight.
Big time.
I think what she should do is hang out at 125. She's showing no signs of stopping anytime soon. She's a world-class competitor. She is as disciplined and dedicated to this sport as anybody that we've ever seen. I think that we will see Valentina Shevchenko be a champ and run 2 divisions at one time very, very soon.
Yeah, and she said, I was watching the Road to the Octagon and the build-up.
How good does she look?
She talked. I mean, her coach Pavel is just, just so laser focused. Yeah. They live in Vegas now.
He reminds me of Anatoly Lomachenko.
A bit, doesn't he? And they're very much in, And she said, this is my life. This is not like, I'm not in this to like make some money and then retire and do No, martial arts is my life, and it has been since I could walk,
right.
And so I think the level of dedication, like you said, is not showing any. She's not showing any signs of stopping anytime soon, and she's not showing any signs of getting any slower.
Yeah.
I mean, her pop on her strikes is just as crisp and just as sharp as ever. I would propose that she's getting better.
Yeah, no, she is. And the way she looks in these embeddeds and the countdowns and stuff like that, she looks so crisp with all of her motions. And I think that she's not just a striker. She's a phenomenal clinch fighter. She's a phenomenal grappler. All around, she's just so skilled. And I think it's also one cool thing to note that her sister's on this card as well.
Yep.
This is the first time I think 2 sisters have ever been on a UFC card together. So that's really cool for them. I'm sure their family is very proud, and I hope they both get victories. I definitely see Valentina getting a big victory. Jennifer Meyer's not going to be a walk in the park, but I do think that after a few minutes after she dissects her game, Valentina's going to make her look like she doesn't belong, just like everybody else.
I mean, Jennifer Maia lost to Caitlin Chukagian.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think we have to kind of put some perspective around this. She is the number one contender, and she deserves to be 50% of this co-main event.
Right.
Not taking anything away from her. My prediction, first round stoppage, Valentina Shevchenko.
Yeah.
No question here. This is an easy night out for her.
Head kick or something.
Yeah,
something cool.
she's just as, like I said, it's no slight to Jennifer. It's just that, like you said with the Roy Jones.
Yeah.
She's competing in an era where no one can touch her.
Yeah. I think second round. I'll go second round because I think Jennifer's going to try to stay composed and Valentina's going to be patient. But second round finish TKO or KO.
Perfect.
And then the main event.
Yeah, rounding out the main event. So we have Deiveson Figueiredo, the champ.
Everybody's favorite sushi
The Brazilian stud. Yeah, the guy can knock you out and then wake you up and make you a mean
and style
spicy
your hair.
tuna hand roll.
And style your hair
and put a little streak in your hair.
Yeah.
No, he's a cool guy.
Very
I like
cool.
him. And I really, seeing him with his family and where he comes from, the humble beginnings, and then that style of grappling that he practices with his
very cool.
With the animals. I forget the name of it. Somebody let us know in the comments what the name of it is. Yeah, like bullfighting. And he's a very cool guy.
Yeah.
Comes from humble beginnings. You saw him bring the belt to the grave of his grandfather.
Yeah.
He's rooted in family tradition, and the Fighting Figueiredos is what he calls his family. He's a big favorite, minus 320. He's taking on Alex Perez. Common opponents, Joseph Benavidez. Perez was KO'd by Benavidez in 2018.
We all know how it went when Benavidez fought Figueiredo twice.
Perez, he just stopped Jussier Formiga with those low calf kicks. Remember that fight where he just ended up having to sit down?
Yeah.
Deiveson was at Alpha Male. He's now back in Brazil. They've opened their own gym.
Right.
And he's kind of taken that McGregor approach. The fight camp centered around him.
A lot of people are doing that.
Yeah, and I think it's a smart move. I think the odds are right on. I think Alex Perez poses a threat as far as the clinch and against the cage. He's a very good wrestler. He trains hard. He's at a very old school gym in Southern California where they, it's like the guys that like to fight. You know what I mean? The old school guys that just did it for love of the sport. And Perez is certainly not lacking in dedication. But I do see Deiveson Figueiredo getting this done, and I see him getting it done by second or third round stoppage.
In spectacular fashion. Yeah, Alex Perez was on this card earlier in the night, and then some things happened with Cody No Love not being able to make the fight, and then they bumped up the next best flyweight that was scheduled to fight. So while he did have 8 weeks to train for this, I still don't think that was long enough for Deiveson Figueiredo. I think Deiveson is a problem. He's a big body for 125, a massive body, and I think he could definitely move up to 135 sooner than later and be a problem for a lot of people up there. I think his skills are insane, and people always think the little guys don't have a lot of power. Deiveson Figueiredo has wild power.
It's been a long time since we've seen a 125er with that much thunder in his hands.
Yeah, and I think the leg kicks are going to play a role, but I would venture to say that Deiveson Figueiredo throws a pretty hard leg kick, just like Alex Perez does.
He's good everywhere. He's good on the ground. He's got a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah. He was at Alpha Male before, like I said, and so he's in there with some of the best wrestlers, Uriah Faber and those guys.
Yeah.
And now he's got his own camp centered around him, and it feels like he's just in his stride. And I think we're going to see him hold on to the belt for a little while at 125.
We'll make it easy. I'm going to go with a finish, a TKO finish in round 2.
Perfect. Well, guys, thanks so much for watching. Let us know in the comments. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? I know Nick and I disagree with each other, which doesn't happen very often. But thanks so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Enjoy the fights this weekend, and check us out on audio where you listen to podcasts.
Thanks again, y'all. Have a great day.
Have a good one.